Welcome to Monday Motivations, 52 weeks to a more purposeful you. And this week we have Debbie Nereson. I always mess up people's last name. Did I say it right?
Nereson, yeah.
I said it right. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to be talking about creativity. So we're in week 32, creativity. So Debbie and I, we met at Sutter. We collaborated on a project. It was, which one was it? Developing a team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, developing a team. And so Debbie's an amazing person. She's a facilitator and trainer. And I'm so excited to talk with you about creativity. And before we do, I'm going to introduce you formally to our audience. So Debbie is a talent development consultant with Sutter Health University. She has spent the last 17 years designing and delivering engaging leadership programs for health organizations. She received her Master of Arts in Communication Studies from Chico State University, where her main area of focus was leadership and motivation. And we know the workplace needs that. She also teaches a public speaking and small group communication course at Sierra College. She lives in Roseville with her husband and 2 boys, which are adorable. She loves spending quality time with friends, hiking, reading, listening to podcasts, and her Peloton. Okay, so tell me about the Peloton before we get into creativity. Everybody's talking about the Peloton.
Yeah, it's the best thing ever. You should definitely, yeah. You wouldn't think, you're like, oh, I don't know, just doing a bike, but they do such a good job of making it a whole experience, and they have different instructors for everyone, and you can do it when you want. You can follow friends. They have, weights and yoga, and it's everything. And so when the pandemic was happening, I was feeling a little uncomfortable going to the gym. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna do it, and super glad that I did. And sometimes it's harder, to work out on your own instead of like meet a friend at the gym. But if you're on the fence, I say go for it. The instructors are amazing.
And how long have you had it?
A year. I've had it.
Okay. And you're still loving it?
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
because there's, a million, you could do bikes and yoga and Pilates and bar and weights and walking. I don't have a tread, but some people, they do the tread and you can run on it. Like I'm speaking like Pelotonish, but
I know I'm all tread. Oh,
yeah.
People didn't know they were going to get some workout advice.
So
they thought we're doing Monday Motivation.
If you're on the fence, I say go for it for sure.
Awesome. Okay. So what did you think about this week's topic on creativity?
I had a lot of thoughts on this, and I was really excited for this topic around creativity. So many things of what you said in the short piece really spoke to me. And so I'll just share the 3 things that really stood out to me, and then I'll connect them to how I relate to them. So one of the things that really stood out to me is this idea of the myth of creativity, and creativity being only around, I'm an artist or a painter. And I'll never forget, it's probably been about 12 years or so, and I was working at Dignity, and I had a mentor there, and she is like the essence of creativity, like making jewelry and paints in her mom's shop and all of this. And I would always just say, I'm not creative. And she was like, what are you even saying? Like the way you think of different activities we do with the group, the way that you think of ways to re-engage our team that was going through a lot at the time, that's creativity. It's thinking outside of the box. It's thinking about things differently. And it was just this aha to me of this huge limiting self-belief that I had, that creativity could only look one way. And it really changed everything. And now I think I'm such a creative person. I'm still not like making jewelry on Etsy or doing any of those things. And I made a knot blanket, but it was
candles.
Painful. yeah. And I think that it's actually kind of become my wheelhouse in terms of how I can creatively engage a virtual audience. How can we teach the same thing year after year in a way that doesn't feel like you've taught the same thing year after year? So that was the first thing that really stood out to me, is this idea of thinking about creativity different than maybe kind of the ideas of what you would have historically thought about it. And then also just to be aware of the self-talk you had around creativity. Mm-hmm. Because I think, when you get into being creative, which was another point that I love that you said, is you have to be open and willing in terms of creativity. And one of the things that just a reminder is we've lost the space to be creative and think. We are heads down, thinking all the time. Even, I really try to honor my day. Yeah. And I really try to honor my daily walk. But even that, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm listening to an audio, I'm getting information. And, you all know this, right? You have your best ideas like in the shower when you're not thinking, because there's nothing in that, right, to distract you. And we've really just, if we're in line somewhere, we're on our phone, or when we're driving in our car, we're absorbing. And just that reminder, I think that anyone that's kind of feeling stuck is just to give yourself time to think. Even if you have to put a 10-minute invite on your calendar and go sit outside with nothing and, a cup of tea and just think, you solve a lot of problems that way. So that was the other thing that really spoke to me is being willing to give yourself the space to think about things differently. And then the third thing that you mentioned was that obstacles are opportunities for inspiring to create. And, these last 2 years, I think, have been everything about creativity. It's, how do we connect with people when we weren't allowed to be in person? And how do, we were delivering, multiple classes a day, a week, a month in person. And on a dime, we had to change to how are we going to deliver and provide development to our organization at a time when they need it more than ever, in a way that's safe and cost effective. And what does that look like? And how do we re-engage, how do we engage people? And so I think, I'm fascinated what we'll look back on this whole 2 years, and I'm talking like it's over, but I'm just going to pretend these 2 years and some of the good things that are going to come out of it. And I hope that we keep that lesson with us. I hope that we go, there were some things we had to change, and maybe those make sense. One of the things that was really big at Sutter's, we went to video visits, and there was a delay in doing that because there's something with the payers that you have to have certain points of connection to be able to get paid by the insurance, and not don't quote me on that, but it was something like that. We were able, some of those restrictions were lifted a little bit, but it was this idea of, we don't have to do things the way we've always done them. And when you work in healthcare, you go, I'm excited that we have an organization that's creative and inspiring and thinking about different ways to handle some of these problems that have been handled, the status quo way. And the same thing, my job at Sierra, I was already teaching online, so I had, a leg up. But I think the creativity that was available to, how do I engage these students that are sitting at home? And so I think creativity is so necessary and so foundational, and it can really change everything and inspire us. But we have to have the space and also the courage to try things that aren't going to work.
Oh my gosh. I love how you've summarized it in those 3 concrete points. What a natural trainer you are. But I was thinking about, so you said, it's about starting the day, starting everything. It comes with the mindset that I am creative. And when we think about the drama triangle, where we're
another drama triangle. Tell me about it.
What? Oh gosh. Okay, I get to draw. Okay, so this is a full day class, and I use this. It's in my coaching handbook. You know what? I love drawing models. Here we go. Okay, so the drama triangle, it's the dysfunctional way that we interact with each other. It's easy to do. It's natural. It's as soon as there's a pain point, we get prompted into one of 3 roles. There's the role of the victim. So that's feeling overpowered. I can't, there's nothing I can do. So it's low confidence. Then there's the role of the persecutor. So the persecutor, this is the person or the thing that's putting the pressure point, the pain point on the victim. So the persecutor could be stay-at-home orders. The persecutor could be you have to wear your mask. The persecutor could be I'm cutting your salary. Whatever it is, but it's that person or thing that when we're in the role of the victim, we are mad at this point, this person or thing. and we're complaining about it, because the victim role, we complain. And what happens is when we complain, who do we complain to? The rescuer. So the rescuer, it's spelled wrong, whatever, rescuer. So this is the person that's going to feel sorry for us. The rescuer believes that we're not capable, so they jump in and help and fix. So they do the thinking for us. And so everything in the drama triangle is based on I can't. So the persecutor is like, you're doing it wrong, change. They're saying, I can't. The rescuer is like, no, I know you can't, let me help you. So that's just in a nutshell what it is. And I like what you're saying about the limiting belief, because a lot of times when I'm working with people or teams and they're stuck in this drama triangle in their team dynamic, boss, subordinate dynamic, I always start with, well, we've got to step out of the drama triangle into the empowerment dynamic. And instead of the role of the victim, we're in the role of the creator. And our creator mindset is, I can do hard things. I can handle this. I know what I want. I know what I need. And it's that strong leadership role. And then there's two other corresponding roles that we don't need to get into, but I'll just say them at a high level, just so I don't leave you hanging. So instead of the role of a persecutor, when we're in a healthy dynamic, the corresponding role is the role of a challenger. So a challenger is when we're in that role where we're saying like, no, I'm not going to help you. I know you can do it. You know where to find it. And so it's setting the challenger sets limits from a place of you can do it, where the persecutor is like, you're doing it wrong, go do it right. And then the corresponding role with the rescuer is the role of a coach. So coaches, they're curious and they ask questions that empower the person over here to engineer their own epiphany and have their own aha, and then step over in a creator role and be creative. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm looking at my post-it notes. I have one that says the critic or the creator.
Yes.
And yeah, it's really that. And I think that there might be an essence of Renee Brown quote in that. I think she might have that quote. And when I was listening to you talk about that, thanks for sharing that, because I hadn't heard about that, is, a lot of, especially again in these last 2 years and just life in general, we get focused on what we don't have control over, and we get focused on some of those things that we can't move. And that's really disempowering and can feel really frustrating and just dark and depressing. And, many times these last 2 years, I'd make a list of all the things that were on my mind, and then what could I do to control them? And that, that's when we saw, like, when you look back and be like, we would meet in the park in lawn chairs, and we would have birthday parties that were like driving birthday parties. But all of that was like, what could we do? What could we do to celebrate people? And I think that's just a skill that I think people can really relate, or really a tactical skill, is when you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling in the victim and everything's happening to me. What can I control? What can I move forward? What questions can I ask? What conversations can I have? What can I do for myself to get me where I need to be? It's so much more empowering and fulfilling, and just feels. And I think, again, that's being creative. That's thinking outside of the box. It's instead of going, I'm so missing the way that it was, and being stuck there, even if those are valid feelings, it's not a helpful, empowering kind of mindset that's going to get you where you need to go.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we have to grieve the reality. And then after we do that, it's like, well, what can we create from this thing that I don't want? And as you were talking right now, I was thinking about also being stuck, say, with relationships. The past few years has created a lot of division and, politics, and just seeing it, mask, no mask, vax, not vax, like, so, and it can feel, I don't know if you've experienced any of that, but it can feel like powerless, like, well, what can I do if I believe different? And I think being creative, like, I can still create connection, even if we see it differently. What do you think about creativity in like those dynamics?
Yeah, for sure. I think you just really summarized it well in terms of, okay, so let's change the focus instead of agreement to connection.
Mhm.
And if I was creating connection in this moment, maybe what I would do is I would, ask that person to share a little bit more. You feel really passionate about your side. I would love to know what your experience has been. I would love to know, what are some of the things that you've read and where are you getting your information? And I'm not asking I'm trying to challenge it. I'm just really want to understand and connect with you and what's kind of been your frame of reference that's helping you think about things from this perspective. Because I think that's the important goal is
Mhm.
I hope that we continue to live in this world that people think differently and they think really passionate. I mean, when I teach classes, I say so many times, they're probably so sick of me saying this, but if everyone's always agreeing at the table and nodding their heads, you've got the wrong people at the table. You
Mhm.
need people that will say, well, what about this? And did we think about that? And how is this going to impact people? And that also, to me, takes creativity because, again, you're challenging the status quo. You're looking around the table and going, is every voice represented?
Mhm.
And or are we only inviting the people that will agree so that we can move things quicker?
Yeah.
And I also think that our problems are just getting harder. And so we're going to have to be more creative in how we're solving them.
Mhm.
We're going to have to ask, what else could we do? I mean, one of the things we are really big on design thinking here, and we have an amazing design and innovation department. And one of the questions that they ask a lot in their teaching is, how might we? And I love that. Like, how might we connect with people that we disagree with? How might we create a virtual learning experience or create an amazing learning experience virtually? Like, you just get different answers when you ask really good questions, which we know, right?
Oh, wait, say that again. I want to make sure everybody, I'm writing that down.
I don't know if I'm going to say it exactly the same, but I'm not going to say it the right way. I lost it, but it's this idea of it's the quality of the questions in terms of the results that we're going to get. And if we're not asking the right questions, we're not going to get different answers and different ideas.
Mhm. Okay, so the quality of the questions, and you said I think you said we get really good answers when we ask really good questions.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. So, okay, let me write it down. Okay, we get really good answers when we ask really good questions. So what are some examples of effective questions and ineffective questions, or the quality questions and high quality questions versus, I don't like to use good or bad, but like high quality versus low quality?
There's a million things, and we know this, right, from work in coaching. One of the things that's the main thing is you ask questions you don't know the answer to.
Ooh.
And that's really scary, right? But those are really the good questions, right? Is that you're not asking questions so that you can back the people into the response that you want them to have, right? You're asking the questions you don't know the answers to. And you've created the space and the safety for people to think of new ideas and challenge and say, what about this? And could we do that? And then there's the basics, right? It needs to be open-ended. It needs to be.
Hold on real quick. I think this is going to be a good one. This is going to be my takeaway from so far, one of many. But I liked when you talked about, so when we ask questions that we already know the answers to, we are essentially backing a person into
what we want them to think or decide.
So let's just play this out. My husband actually does this a lot with me. It's interesting when you have two growth-oriented people constantly reading books and doing things like us too. It's very interesting. So when a person, what would you say? What would be a good response when you feel backed into? I mean, I have an idea. See, look, I'm asking you a question that can I just share? Let me just get to it. I'll share.
Yes, go for it.
And then how about this? You poke holes in my
okay. All right, sounds good.
Did that get me out of my little pit?
Yes, it did. You did a good job. It was
but I'm glad I did this because see, this is how it happens. Okay, so I'm thinking if I sense that I'm very intuitive when I can feel somebody's guiding me, and I don't want to be guided. I think what I'll say is maybe I'll tell that person, like, I sense that you have an answer. I'm curious what your answer is. So that way they can do the talking that they really want to do.
Yep.
Covered in their fancy coaching question.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no holes to poke. That's exactly what I would say. I would call it out instead of getting agitated and annoyed by it.
Yeah.
And I would just say, it feels like you kind of already have decided what you think is going on right now. Do you want to share what your perspective is? And then I'll share mine.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it's hard to think of really good questions. This is, where it becomes being creative is because you don't know what you're trying to uncover. And, in the real, if you're really delving deep into kind of the unknown and being creative and thinking about new ideas. So it's hard to really think about what are the questions that are going to get you to that nugget or that gem, because you don't even really know what it is. And so it's a lot about the questions. And then I mentioned this a little bit, but it's also about the environment that you're creating. And I think, when you go back to thinking, because we're talking about creativity as the essence of this, right, is there has to be a level of trust and safety that people can be creative and that they can be asked these questions and answer these questions. And, I know the term psychological safety is really, Amy Edmondson coined it, but it's this idea that we create the safety for people to disagree and have different ideas. And that comes from, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being the first person to voice your concerns. Would anyone like to add anything to that? It's, when you're being creative, it's you going first. Like what Amy Edmondson also said is you're modeling fallibility. It's my favorite thing. Modeling, you're going first and you're saying, okay, so let's just try to do this a different way than we've ever done it before. And let's just see if it sticks, and I'll go first. And this is what's worked and what hasn't worked. So I think, we'd kind of be missing it if we're not talking about the impact of psychological safety and trust when we're talking about creativity, because I think that's a lot of the times why people aren't creative and they don't say, what about this? And think about this new idea. And the magic also is you, as with anything, once you go for it, you build the confidence and you go, oh my gosh, I said that idea and everyone loved it.
Yeah.
And now let me say another idea. You like that one? I got a whole bunch more coming.
Yeah.
Right? But it's that idea that so many times people are afraid to go first, or we don't create the space for the thinkers to share.
Yeah. Exactly. When you were saying that, you said a lot of times people are afraid to share their ideas. And then I was thinking, or I'm a sharer. So if I'm in the room and I'm constantly raising my hand, the thinkers, they need that time. And you had said that was your second point was, that time in the shower, that quiet time. So, oh my gosh, we could talk about this all day long. So I'm just going to kind of recap for our listeners. It's that mindset of everybody's creative. I'm creative. It doesn't have to be that I'm creative, with a paintbrush and paints or whatever box we have in our mind of creativity. Creativity shows up in all different ways, but we all have it. And then the second thing you said, we have to have that time to think, boredom is a lost gift. It's a lost art for us. And then the third thing was about obstacles and limits are actually the catalysts for creativity. That being said, what advice do you give to yourself and others on this topic of creativity?
So before I go there, I want to say one more thing, and then I'll share that advice. I think another thing that might be just something to think about is to be creative with how you give yourself the space to think, right? And so one of the things, like when we're talking about, like if you're in a group, one of the things that we do is I'll say, I'm going to give everyone 3 minutes to write down all their thoughts and their ideas of what they think that we should do. And that way, the people that aren't first or the talkers, they don't talk, and everyone gets their ideas. And once they've written it down, they're going to be more apt to share it. So I think things like that, like challenging yourself with how you're engaging that creativity, and then also challenging yourself of, what does creativity look like, or what does thinking time look like for me? I said the going outside, or I said the journaling. Is it, when you're at the DMV, like put your phone down and like look around, and just, you'll be amazed by the ideas that you have, right? So I just wanted to mention that in terms of being creative with how you get that space, because it's hard. We've got a million things pinging, poking, vibrating on our wrist, like at us. And so be creative with what that looks like.
Well, and I want to just say one more thing. I think what I liked about this point that you're making is it has to do with pausing, like stopping, and then like my time is like right now. Parking the car before we rush in the house, maybe 30 seconds. So I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So say that question again. The last advice.
What advice do you give yourself and others in terms of creativity?
The advice that I give myself and others, I think, is really around challenging yourself with what it is, and being really just not putting yourself in a box of like, this is what creativity looks like, and think about it as, we need new ideas. We need different, we need people to be thinking and celebrating that, and to ask really good questions. And I feel like that's the way that we move forward, and, think about things in a way that's going to be positive and create a world that we're super proud of and excited and not stressed about every time that we wake up in the morning.
I love it. That's beautiful. And I think what you just said will keep us out of the drama triangle.
Yeah.
Because when we're in that victim mode, we're not thinking. And when we're in these roles, we're thinking that this person can't do the thinking. So how we treat each other can impact whether or not we believe I can solve my own problem. I can drive the solution for my team. It's all starts with that. So thank you so much, Debbie. I really appreciate it. And I had a blast with you.
Thanks for having me. It was always great to talk to you. And I'm glad you got to do a little drawing in there too. That I consider that a success.
My real self always comes out.
And I got to learn something new. So that's a win-win.
I can't help myself. Okay, everyone, please join us next week. Week 33 is going to be on responsibility. Believe it or not, it's a pretty liberating topic. So we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.